Alrighty, happy Friday. Welcome to the Build Series live in New York City. I'm your host, Kevin Kenny, and our musical guest today's music, I should say, was streamed over 1 billion times last year, and they return in a huge way next Friday, August 2nd, with a brand new album entitled Victorious. Please let's give a very warm welcome to Skillet. I'm awake now.
That's the best introduction I've ever heard for Skillet.
How are you guys?
Great,
Good,
great.
man. Great to be here.
Yeah, short trip, I understand, to New York, but an eventful one. So
In
thanks
and
for stopping
out,
by.
man.
Yeah.
In and out. Make it happen. Get to see all these nice people.
Yeah.
Rockers up in here.
Yeah, they're very excited. I love the Skillet t-shirts, by the way. We got a bunch of cool
I
stuff.
saw when I
out.
walked in. I was like, yeah.
The fans came out. Oh, you know what? Wait, I actually, I forgot something backstage, actually. Do we have that over here? I meant to bring this out before. Is this cool?
Better be a lot of money.
Yeah. Can we get a... Yeah, this is... I think you guys are going to like this. I'm going to put the mic down for a second.
Oh my gosh.
That is our first time seeing it.
Yeah, this is
This
official
is what
news.
it looks like.
Yeah. How is this?
It's
It's
beautiful.
awesome.
We usually
Love it.
get like the Instagram posts, you know, with you guys posing, but really, like, run me through the emotions just looking at this because the single is officially gold now. We can confirm.
I love it. This is special. Also, Jen drew this artwork here. Jen over here
Did,
drew it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like it a lot. Thanks,
gotta be-
everybody.
Jen, that's got to be so rad, though, seeing like your artwork this big and then with a gold plaque.
Oh,
right next
yeah.
to
It's
it.
super surreal. I'm like, man, I haven't seen that art in a while, too. So seeing it all.
Is it better than you remembered it?
It's better than I remember.
I
Yeah.
figured.
That's
Yay.
amazing, guys. Well, congratulations. I'm going to put this right
Thank
here.
you very much. That's so cool. What a surprise.
It's a big day.
Awesome. Very, very cool. You know, it's funny. If you don't know, I mean, I think a lot of people do know, but gold means, of course, 500,000 units sold in the music industry. And the numbers that you guys have put up, we'll get into how great the music is, sonically, but it reaches so many people and it resonates with so many people. What do you think it is? I mean, it must be something you talk about. Maybe you don't think about it all the time, but...
Sure. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that we've been very surprised at our success. Just to be clear, for some people that don't know, it was 10 years before we had any success at all. So we had put out, I think, 4 records, and we're barely making it. And it was the 5th record that all of a sudden something changed. And I think for us, it was just authenticity. I think that the fans believe us, and we have an extremely, I think you would agree, extremely inclusive kind of fan base, all the way from really young people to like old rockers that grew up with metal in the 80s and even 70s, that something about our music is kind of reminiscent of that time period for them. And we have all sorts of religious people, but also very like not religious people, but they resonate with like the emotion of the songs. So I think there's an authenticity about Skillet that people, they dig that. And I think that's really cool. We've always been very open about who we are. And there were things about who we are that used to not work, and now that they work. When I say work, I mean sell.
Right.
For instance, I remember one time I was desperately trying to get a radio station to play my song, rock station. And finally I was like, why won't you play it? And he goes, man, it's just too positive. It's just too positive. It's heavy, but it's just too positive. And I was like, oh, is it? I didn't even know that our music was positive. We were just writing what we felt. And so from then, that was in 2003.
Okay.
To 16 years later or whatever, I can't do math,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, being positive is really in vogue. So all of a sudden, what Skillet was already doing kind of became, commercial in a way.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had girls there, and they were like, girls in rock bands just doesn't work. It's just not cool. And then now we're in the era of girl power, So basically, we did everything awesome before anyone else. No, I'm kidding.
You can certainly say you were ahead of your time.
I'm
How about
just
that?
messing around.
No,
I'm
of
joking.
course, of course. Now the new album, it is a pivot somewhat, right, in terms of the songwriting and the subject matter, because the previous records, I understand, right, you could say it's all about commentary on the world, but in this one, you're searching more inward, right? This is a lot more introspective, you could say.
You know what? Being the songwriter, I never know. What do you think, Korey? Me and Korey wrote the songs. What do you think?
Well, I think there was we had a record called Comatose, which was our first, more successful record that he was talking about. Was a little more introspective, and I think a lot of our hardcore fans, that's still their favorite. Like that's the best Skillet album ever. And so we try to evaluate what exactly is it about that record that they love that they're missing from the ones that followed. And we did have Rise was a lot more global, bigger problem.
That's true. Rise was very much that way.
So one of the things we felt like with Comatose that our fans love is the introspection of it, maybe the heaviness, not necessarily with the guitars, but the heaviness of things that I'm going through, hard times, that kind of thing that our fans really relate to. Because they're like, oh, they understand me, and I get that too. So we did try to revisit some of that content-wise, especially on this album.
That's awesome. I think that's cool.
Smart. Good. That's good. So are you, apparently. I'm like, I don't know. Did I write this? I haven't heard the record yet. I can't comment.
It's cool that you guys say, you hear the fans saying, oh, like we really love this record, and you guys not poo-pooing that or denying that and actually embracing that. Do you ever find that a fan or the fans will love a record for a different reason than you might enjoy it?
Oh, definitely. And it's always also amazing to me. It's I feel this way. I can more relate to it as a fan of U2. So as a fan of U2, like if you go to a U2 concert and you ask 100 people what their favorite U2 record is, there's going to be a lot of different ones. Some people will be like, I don't really like the old stuff, but I love the newer stuff. You hear things like that. Yeah. But in my mind, like, how can you not like War and Joshua Tree and those records? Those are the epitome of U2. But there's a lot of fans that are kind of like, kind of sounds old to me. I like the newer stuff. Skillet fans are a little like that too. Sometimes I'm really surprised at what we meet a lot of people like, hands down, Comatose is your best record. But simultaneously, our song Monster, which is from our Awake record, is by far our biggest song we ever did. And it was on a later album. So sometimes it's hard to understand what their feelings. I always like to hear their opinions. And I never poo-poo, as you say.
Right.
I do poo-poo. But what I was going to say was, never, as you said, poo-poo about liking an old one. I'm like, that's great as long as you like the record. Yeah. I'm super happy, and we're going to keep evolving, and we keep changing and doing what we do, and hopefully gaining new fans, and hopefully you'll like this record too, Right.
And it sounds like you're eating your fiber, so I'm happy to hear that.
I guess I am.
Healthy, and the music sounds good, which is great. Well, I don't want to harp too much on the Comatose point you made, Korey, but how do you guys so successfully navigate, right, such a long career? Because how do you not lose the essence, right? Because there are a lot of acts, and we know them, and some of our favorites where we go, oh, they kind of lost that at the first few records, but you guys haven't at all. So how do you keep the essence of what's great about Skillet while still evolving as artists?
Well, I'll answer. If anybody else wants to talk, just jump in. I'm like Energizer Bunny when it comes. I'll talk all day long. I think that probably what people probably most resonate with Skillet is something to do. It's a little bit metaphysical. You can't describe what it is, but it's something to do in the lyrics. I think more than the music. It's like a feeling about Skillet that feels like community. It kind of feels like people are like, oh, I feel like they understand me and I'm a part of the family. There's this it's kind of spiritual, but even people that would say, I'm not a spiritual person, but your music kind of makes me feel good. I hear stuff like that quite a lot. So I think that part of what it is no matter what we're doing with the music, trying new sounds. Korey's always really good about, let's try a new sound and try to frame it in a different way. But in the end, what we're saying still feels something that's romantic and spiritual at the same time. And I think that probably is why we've been able to kind of do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
That's my own take on it anyway.
No, for sure. What sonically, what can we expect on the new record in terms of new things you guys have experimented with? I know I've heard about hip-hop drums you guys are working with a little bit, but anything else you can tell us about?
Everyone just got nervous. Yeah. Our fans were like, oh no, what did Korey do?
Me and Korey start rapping. I got a rapper name for her now, and she's like, Little K. I don't know, Little K.
I do like hip-hop drums, but not too many.
You tell them about the Sonics.
Sonically, I think the guitars are probably more aggressive on this album. I mean, we tried to sort of overlap the classic Skillet sound, which is kind of like strings, guy girl vocals. So we've done some of that so that those fans are happy because we love that sound too. But then, they always went, oh, this is so like, it's so Awake and Alive Junior when you get, A&R feedback and stuff like that. So you're like, okay, you want to reinvent, but you don't want to go so far that your fans hate you now. So it's kind of trying to navigate through giving the fans what they love, giving the radio formats that we are played on what they love, and then being able to sort of push the demo a little bit to where we can broaden it without losing who we are, which is always difficult. So
yeah, I think Korey produced the record. She did more than me. Korey's really good at being of wanting things to be raw, and guitars. She didn't like the guitars that they're too polished. They need to be heavier and they need to be rawer. Her doing things like that. The hip hop influence is probably more so on beats and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that we've done, there's definite strictures for rock and roll that a lot of rock people do not want you going out of.
they will poo-poo you.
They will poo-poo you for sure. Poo you right out.
Hashtag poo-poo.
Yeah, they'll they don't like synthesizers. They don't really like the keyboard. They don't like the piano. They don't like the drum machines. But urban is huge. Urban rules the world. Hip hop rules the world. Pop music rules the world. And all of these things are using different sounds. Skillet has been a band that's not afraid to try to push the strictures of rock music out to bring new things in. I think that's something that Linkin Park did really well when they came out with the way they were bringing those worlds together. So we try to do that when we can, and Korey's really good at that. And so I'm all metal, and she's all like other alternative and other things, and then we try to blend the two together.
Yeah. Give me some unexpected influences on this new record. Things you're listening to that informed it, and it doesn't have to be literally, but maybe something that inspired you.
Yeah.
Something unexpected.
I could answer for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, you'll listen to something like whether it's 21 Pilots or Billie Eilish or things like that you'll be like, oh, that's really cool, and I'll hear elements in
I'll
that.
pull elements in. Yeah, because
Which are
being the
surprising.
programmer, the one that's doing the keyboard sounds and all that kind of stuff, I mean, sounds go out so fast. So last go round, like EDM was really in. I'm like, okay, I can maybe pull in some of those elements. This go round, that stuff's totally out. And rock music doesn't like those kind of sounds anyway. So it's kind of like, yeah, listen to Billie Eilish and just really modern, minimalistic pop production to be able to pull in some of those elements. I mean, we have like layers and layers and layers and layers and layers, so we're not minimal in our production, but maybe pulling in some of those sounds, maybe you might hear a little vocoder here or there, stuff like that. That's really super.
Who was that band that sang "Sail"?
Oh,
Blame it on my
Owl Nation, but that's an old.
Yeah, no, it's older, but like things like that, like when we did Legendary, the beginning when it's like, oh, like, do something like
even that riff there.
Sail!
That
and I'll be like,
riff
oh! She'll be like, ah, and I'll be like, ugh,
yeah, totally.
and then she'll be like, check this out, and I'll be like, oh, it's kind of weird.
But that riff there is kind of bluesy. That kind of stuff is into rock music. Like, let's do something like that here. He's like, okay, I can write like 100 for you. And I'm like, okay. John's so prolific, he can really write anything at any point. If you asked him to write a song right now, he could do it. So his problem is never like writer's block. It's, I don't know what people like right now. So that's more my world of like, here's some influences of things that are hitting right now. And he's like, oh, I can do that. And then he does.
Do you find it a curation of sorts? Where you take all this music and then you go, oh, maybe we take a little bit of that, and then you funnel it through Skillet? Filter maybe?
I would say that for what she does, because she's more into the production world.
Yeah.
Sure.
And she'll say all these things like what she just went through. Well, this and this and that's going through my. I'm like.
And or this kind of writing is in style.
Like Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
Do you remember the movie Johnny Mnemonic with Keanu Reeves? It was like Matrix before Matrix, and he's like. Anyway, one more time. All right, now we're done. But I'm like, okay, I think I see what you mean, and I'll try to write something. She'll be like, that's totally cool. That reminds me of so-and-so. It's totally on point. And I'll be like, I don't really know. I just was doing
He's just a great writer.
something weird.
So I just
told
need
me
to
do.
I need to give him the target, and then he'll hit the bullseye.
Not all the time, but every once in a while.
Good percentage.
Yeah, you could start calling me Bullseye if you want to. That's a Marvel villain for Daredevil.
The poo-poo bullseye.
It's no big deal. That is not a good name for a band.
He's like, that one's gonna.
I can guarantee low success.
We're going to turn over to the fans in just a second, but I do want to ask about a couple songs I've heard about off the new record. Save Me is the first one, if you guys could tell me anything about that one.
Yeah, Save Me would be a little bit more my influence because it's a bit more it's more straight up metal, hard rock into metal, kind of gothic sounding on the lyrics. And that would be one, I think, that when you were asking about lyrics of the album, definitely that's an inward song. That's not a, this is what's happening in the world and let's change the world and make it a better place. That's a, this is happening in me and I need to make me a better place, you know? And kind of a reaching out for help kind of a song, which I think is kind of cool. And the way the guitar riffs, me and Seth were recording the guitars in random dressing rooms across the nation. And we had fun with that one, right?
Oh yeah, that's my personal fave on
Save
the
Me.
album. Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's up our alley. We're metalheads.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be like, can you do this? And he's like, of course I can do that. I'm a really terrible guitar player, but I'll hear things. I'll be like, can you, and I'll get his guitar and I'll be like, just kind of like a little bit like this, but make it go, can you do that? And he's just like, yeah.
It's a really good impression. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Did you guys really record the guitars in like dressing rooms and things like that?
Most of the entire record we recorded on the road. You had dressing
No
rooms.
way.
Back of the
In the
bus.
bus.
Yeah.
Now, we did go in the studio and do some overdubs and
Yeah.
some things, but all of the demos were made on the road, and then we went and polished them into a studio. Probably only like 8 days in the studio, and the rest of it, Korey did. She'd set up anywhere. Russia, we did some of it in Russia, some of it
Wow.
in Europe.
Wow.
Poland, that's in Europe.
Where is the craziest place you recorded in any element of the songs we're going to get in a week from now? Because that'll be really cool once we get to actually listen to the track list and be like, oh my God, that's where that sound comes
Yeah.
from?
Well, there is a legendary story about Jen singing her part in a hotel room, but she not being able to sing too loud because it was nighttime and we had to get it done. Her burying her head into a couch with a pillow over her head singing, because she sings like super loud. It's like a laser beam into your eyeball. Give him a.
I'm not doing that.
Say my name. Give him one. Everybody, it was like, say my name.
It is kind of crazy because they'll like put my vocal like way quieter than John's, but because it just cuts so much, it still seems to sound
cuts
louder
like a
in the
knife.
mix. Yeah, so I've like me and Korey would sometimes when we're on the road and we have to figure out ways to record. One time we were in a hotel room and it was literally like pillows like this, and I buried my head under the chair and put the pillow on top of my head, and I sang like this, you know what I mean? Literally like that. And then
There's video of it
I
somewhere.
know that I could just hear Korey giggling, and I'm like, "Are you filming?"
I was
me?"
tracking her and filming her at the same time. I'm like,
I
okay,
could
go.
tell by the mischievous giggle. I was like, "She's totally filming me," and then I'm like, "Stop filming me!" My hair's like wild, and I'm like, "We gotta do what we
Like,
gotta
you
do."
sound good. Let's do it again.
Yeah, it's super glam.
And we haven't told anybody that this is the only interview we've said this on, is going back to the legendary thing, my scream I was talking about. Something like it was, I think this was the 5th version of Legendary that we wrote. We kept rewriting the song over and over, and it had many different things. And she's like, so
I like little vocal hooks that aren't like melodies. It's just like, ow, stuff like that. That's more my
you
world.
said something about the sail thing. We'd already done it went, dun, oh, oh, oh. And she's like, I just keep hearing that.
I'm like, I just really need you. I know that we have to leave. So we were packing up to
leaving
leave
for
for a
tour.
show.
The bus was there, and we needed to go.
I'm like, I know we have to go, and your voice is like tired, but can you just give me like a, oh?
Yeah, and I was in a really bad mood. So this is what we haven't told
please.
anybody.
What, do you run
Please.
onto the bus and record this? Or
No,
where are you?
this
This
we
is
had
in our
actually
house,
taken it
actually.
into our house in the studio.
Bus
We had-
was there. We're like, oh,
Bus
just
was
hurry
there
up. We have to
regularly.
send in the demo, and we don't know if they're gonna like it. So please, just
yeah,
give me like a.
and we had to pack up our gear to take it into the bus, and the bus was waiting on us, and we were late. We had to go to the airport. So she said, just give me one of these. Oh, and I was just like,
He was like, oh,
we gotta go. And then it ended up on the record.
that very one. That very one.
Bus driver's like, what the hell's going on in that
yeah,
house?
yeah. Oh,
Why
can we
pick it
go
up?
now?
You okay?
like that. Anyway, that's where that comes
Has
from.
so much passion in it.
You know what I want to ask you guys is, Korey, you produced Jen's debut last year, right? How did that experience inform this record at all? Did that change anything?
I think that it probably gave people confidence that we could do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because with Skillet, there's so much at stake and typically we like that producer. He's kind of like the objective voice that's in between us and everybody else, and that we
Right.
can just trust. And I think after doing Jen's, it was kind of like, I think maybe we could do this. And then I think that they thought, maybe they can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really
And it was really cool too because, you know, I always feel like John and Korey have kind of produced past Skillet albums, but not necessarily having the title.
Totally.
And I feel like Ledger was just the perfect way for you to prove yourself, though it wouldn't have been said like that at the time. And it was really fun too because it was kind of similar in that it was tons of experimenting in dressing rooms or in the back lounge of the bus. And Korey, like, say we've written a song, she can produce it like 25 different ways really easily. And we didn't have that pressure on us of like, oh, we only have the studio for X amount of weeks. So you've just got to like point and go. We really had the time to kind of experiment. What do we want this song to be like? And she could do 3 different versions of the same song. And I just feel like it was like such a fun growing experience. I got to see what Korey could do on a whole nother level. I knew she would kill it, but it was like now everyone else is seeing it too.
Yeah.
And it's like now that they've done Skillet together as well, it feels like this album has something really special where there's no middleman and these guys have taken risks and just gone with their gut on things that they maybe in the past wouldn't have had the freedom to do, and it's really made something special.
That's awesome. It's cool, guys. Let's. You got all these fans we're talking about, both here in studio and online. We're gonna get some questions from Twitter right now. Let's kick it over here. This comes from Running Man. John, what song from the new album resonates with you the most?
All right. I didn't know this was here. I'm like, whoa, it's so big. It's cool. You know, probably for me, the title track, which is called Victorious. That's what a title track is for people that don't know. So it's the title of the record. It's the track. Anyway, this has a real personal story to me because, you know, the last few years, this is a very kind of a serious note, but the last few years, we have seen a lot of celebrities die. You know, people, comedians and rock stars, people that a lot of us grew up our whole lives with. You know, Robin Williams, for instance, that's one that's, you know, some of my earliest memories of TV was Mork and Mindy when I was a kid, right? And they were really starting to get to me, especially the ones that were more, you know, suicide-based or accidental suicide, or accidental overdose, things like this. And the one that really finally just got to me was Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. I was such a huge fan. Never met him. I always kind of imagined we would be touring together at some point because there's a lot of fan crossover between our bands. And I was just really down about that. And I was trying to read to find out what in the world was behind this. And I just wanted to write a song that could be for people that struggle with depression, and people that feel like they're all alone in the world. They don't want to talk to somebody, perhaps they do want to talk to somebody. It's something I can't quite relate to. I've had dark moments in my life, but not what I would call a series of depression where I don't want to leave my house and I would be willing to leave my kids behind and things. So I wanted to write a song that was like, this is what I would say to somebody if I knew them, if they were my friend and they were struggling with this. I would say, you can make it. It's going to be hard, but you can make it. You can be victorious through this battle. We can do it together, you know? So that's probably why that song is so special to me, along with the fact that it's my favorite parts about Skillet. It's reminiscent of an older symphonic Skillet that's a little bit classical, a little bit pop, but also a little bit metal. Yeah. And no one's heard it yet, so I hope you love it. Hear it next week.
There are a lot of personal songs I've heard on this record. Reach is another song that's really personal. Could you guys tell me that story?
Yeah, you want me to tell it or do you want to tell it? All right, I'll tell it only because Korey likes me to talk. So, but this is also a very personal song for Korey. One of Korey's high school friends had been diagnosed with cancer, like stage 4. Not going to make it unless a miracle happens, cancer. And she's married, had 2 kids, and so Korey and her friend reconnected, and we're talking about life and talking about the fact that, you know, she may not be here in a year. Family and kids and motherhood, being scared. And they talked about some spiritual things, about God and the afterlife and stuff like that. And so Korey just said to her friend, maybe just try praying. Talk to God about these things. Talk to him about your fears and whatnot. And so anyway, a few months later, she got a call from her friend basically saying, I was in the shower today, And I remembered that you said when I was feeling this, I was supposed to tell God, so I did. And I just asked God if he was there, and I heard a voice in my head that said I needed to reach my hands in the air. So she said I was there in the shower with my hands in the air, and I felt someone touching my fingers, telling me that I wasn't alone. So we decided to write that song for her. In fact, we dedicated the whole album to her. She did pass away since that time, and that's what Reach is about. It's about feeling alone, and maybe even feeling abandoned and questioning, that kind of. So that's a pretty personal song for
Yeah.
Korey, and so that's what the whole Victoria's album is dedicated to her.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Thank you guys for sharing that. Let's get back to some of these fan questions. The first is going to come from right over here. What's your name?
My name's Melissa, and I'm from New Jersey. Great show this morning, guys. I'm loving my Skillet day off here.
I know. You're about to say you're becoming famous today.
Yeah.
First, you were headbanging on TV.
That's me, Metal Melissa. So my question is really around like artwork and marketing. So I was the kind of person that would just love to peruse the music store and look at, my favorite bands, but sometimes the album covers of certain records would like speak to me and be like, this is a cool cover. Let me check out this band. And sometimes I actually bought those records. And I'm a big, fan of having the vinyls or the CDs. So this world of digital where I have to subscribe to something or buy an Amazon or Spotify or something. For me, it's heartbreaking that I can't like look at the album and read the lyrics and kind of see who you dedicate it to. Like I love doing all those things. So I'm curious, with that change and everything being online, how has your marketing strategy changed? Do you still feel like you spend a lot of time on the artwork on your albums, or have you changed that and put your marketing dollars elsewhere to try to get that reach out there for new fans?
That is excellent. Hashtag Metal Melissa.
Yes.
All right, we're doing this here, people. You hear? Send your questions to hashtag Metal Melissa. No, really though, fantastic. I feel the same way. It's a little bit like you embracing the fact that something we loved is just going away. And I was the same way. I mean, walking through the store, looking to find, first you see what the front of the record looks like, and then you want to see what the band looks like so you know if they're going to be good. You know what I'm saying? Because we were growing up, if they didn't have big hair and spandex, they sucked. You right? You know what I mean? It was just such an awesome time. Yes, that has changed. I still think that I think Skillet has a pretty good balance, I would say, of being like, I want this artwork to be indicative of what this record makes me feel like, and I want to do something special, but at the same time, realizing that if your artwork is terrible, it really doesn't matter anymore. You got to have good music that gets out on playlists. It's more important for me to answer 100 comments on Instagram than have a good artwork. It's just a different thing, which has a coolness too, because you're connecting with fans, which I really love. But it used to be more about things like that. And tell you the truth, I kind of miss it. I reminisce about that nostalgia of walking. Same with movies. Yeah. Walking to a Blockbuster and looking at all the movies you've never seen, going, I wonder if I should rent that. It probably sucks, but sometimes you'd find a good one, right? Like, for instance, me and Korey are the very first people that I ever knew that saw Office Space.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because it wasn't a popular movie, and I was like, weird, Jennifer Aniston's in it. And I was like, this is like the best movie I've ever seen, and nobody knows it. Trailblazing. All right.
All right, awesome. Let's get to another studio.
Having said that, that's pretty cool, though, right?
DJ Ashba, giving props to Ashba
That's
Media.
right. That's
We're
right.
very big fans here, so.
Really?
Yes.
Well, if we have time when we're done, I'll tell you a funny story about
Let's
it.
do it.
All right.
Hi guys, hi John. I'm really huge your fan from Kazakhstan. Yeah, I love your songs, and I have a couple questions. What is your favorite song you sing, and what is the secret of your singing high notes? Yeah, because after your songs, I try to be singer. I really like.
Are you going to sing something for us now?
Comatose maybe a little bit, but it's too high for me.
Why are you here from Kazakhstan?
Because I want to be singer. I really love your
Oh.
songs. And
But do you live in America?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow, cool. Well, nice
Yeah.
to see you.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
we've been to, as you know, we've been to Russia very
Yeah,
often, 8 or 9 times, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, anybody want to say their favorite song that we sing?
Any song or on the new album?
Oh.
Okay.
Any song.
Any song.
I'm gonna go with Rebirthing since they don't know. Rebirthing is my favorite Skillet song. As some of the people heard earlier, it's probably because it's the first song that anybody liked from us. But to me, it was like very much like the epitome of a Skillet song. It's classical, but it's hard rock and it's pop. Korey sings on it, which I really love. It's got a great guitar solo. Great 80s solo. Anybody else want to say their favorite song?
I love the Resistance because it's just so fun to play live, and it's totally, I don't know, it makes you feel like you're just pumped and you can run a marathon and
Make
fight.
you feel
fight.
strong.
Makes me feel so strong.
Yeah.
Like, let's go
She's
to war.
breaking
man.
down walls.
Yeah.
She's like, ah. She's
I
like,
feel like the Hulk, I'm so ready.
kettlebells.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's move on. It's of high notes. I don't know. I don't sing as high as most of the people that I like to listen to, but I would say usually when I sing high, I don't sing as loud as when I sing lower, so it gets a little quieter actually to get it out. Some people make the mistake of trying to sing louder, and you might hurt your voice doing that. That's my only advice.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
It's awesome. Let's get to the next one. It's going to come from right behind me. Oh, up front, I guess. What's going on, man? What's your name?
I'm Zach from New Jersey.
Hey, Zach.
So, my question is how would you guys, what would some suggestions be to, live out a good, faithful, and devoted life in this ever-increasing secularized world?
Right. You want me to keep talking?
Sure.
Okay. Feel free to interrupt
Yeah,
me.
jump in if-
I'll just keep on trucking along.
All of you jump
Yep.
in.
Anybody can jump in if you want. Let's see. I think that there's something to me about my faith in God that's really kind of simple. It's not that it's easy to do, but it's simple to live. You just got to make like the right decisions. So even in the music business, there's always a lot of temptation to, for instance, temptation just to want to be famous. It's not necessarily evil to be famous. It's not evil to be famous or even to want to be famous, but it's a little bit like what your main motive is, and in the entertainment world, you can lose track of what your priorities are supposed to be, and before you know it, you may have gotten that fame, but you don't have a relationship with your kids or your wife or your spouse, and the things that really matter to you end up just burning, and it's very sad to see. We know lots of people in the music business that we've met that they were trying and trying. They finally got that fame, and now they're divorced, and their kids don't know their names, and it's been a really heartbreaking thing to see. So I usually just tell people to get your priorities in line. I can't tell them what their priorities should be, but whatever it is that you believe, or your faith, or your life motto, or whatever it is that you want to do, know what that is before you go into the entertainment world, because it'll just chew you up and spit you out. Yeah. Very, very hard, very nasty thing.
Thank you.
Awesome. Time for one final question, it looks like. And it'll go from over here. What's your name, man?
Hey, I'm Simon from Atlanta. So my question for you guys is, you guys touched on this a little bit already earlier on, but you guys are one of my biggest musical influences. I'm wondering what were your musical influences, either growing up or in Skillet and things like that.
Sure. Yes, Skillet is definitely like an amalgam of tons of different influences, which is, I think, kind of what makes up our Skillet sound would be that it's a little bit 70s, 80s, and 90s, all kind of put together. And I think the 70s elements would probably be things like Fleetwood Mac or Queen, Meatloaf, and just maybe that kind of classical leaning rock. Wouldn't you say? The theater of those kind of bands. That's what I call it. I call it theater. And but then there's a definite kind of 80s. The 80s was all about like excess, excessive everything. Mm-hmm. And Skillet's music can feel very dramatic and have that like feeling of it's a little bit over the top at times with the guitars and the symphony and stuff. And then finally, I would say, definitely 90s music in lots of ways. I call it modern rock, whether it's not that modern anymore. I suppose Linkin Park and Korn and Disturbed and 3 Days Grace and Breaking Benjamin, like all those kind of flyleaf 90s, 2000 years. We definitely have a lot of that in our music. But I think if you put all that together with the older stuff and then with Korey's influences, which are going to be U2 and Peter Gabriel and The Cure and things like that, once you put those kind of things in there, it kind of gives Skillet a little bit of a unique synthesized hard rock sound that is a little surprising for some people.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you. Thanks for your question. Atlanta, Kazakhstan, we have a big
This
audience.
place is nationwide. Yeah.
All right, we're unfortunately out of time, guys, but this was really fun. And again, for you at home, the new record, Victorious, is out and available everywhere August 2nd. One more time for Skillet.